Hello and welcome to ATG, the podcast. I'm Caroline Goldsmith, Associate Director for the Charleston Hub, and today we're very pleased to welcome Dr. Leslie McIntosh. She's VP for Research Integrity at Digital Science, and she's joining us today from London. Welcome, Leslie. We're so glad to have you today.
Thanks so much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so you earned your PhD and Master's in Public Health with a concentration in biostatistics and epidemiology. You're not only an academic, but also an entrepreneur. You founded Ripeta in 2017, which is now part of Digital Science. Your work to improve research quality and integrity on a global scale. It uses algorithms to detect trust markers of research manuscripts. And you actually had the most read Retraction Watch post in 2022, and we're going to link to that at the end so that people can take a look at that. But today we're going to talk about the very important topic of research integrity, a big topic at the conference this year. We did a recent Charleston in between on that topic, research quality, research integrity, and Dimensions Author Check, which was just launched last month. Very exciting. And it's a new tool to assist publishers with verifying authors. So it's like a credibility check for authors, if I understand that right. I'm reading it, but we'll talk about that more in a minute. Leslie, can you tell us about the background, your career, your role as VP of Research Integrity at Digital Science? Can you tell us some about that?
Sure. So where I like to start on this is after I finished my PhD, I went over to Washington University School of Medicine, and the short story is I ended up directing the Center for Biomedical Informatics. Now, how do I get from that to VP of Research Integrity? At the time, we were aggregating a lot of data, and that also takes in making sure that the data is good and we could get our researchers to doing better quality research faster. And that meant let's try to make it reproducible. The other part of that, though, was also, well, how do we get cited? And for the good work we do with the data, because I've been a data person for a long time and I love that. And so that really moved me into working with lawyers, working with the ethicists at the university, and working very importantly with the library and understanding how do we trust research and how do we make it better. And putting all of that together was then, well, how do we make it easier? You use algorithms. I love data. I love algorithms. That led to starting a company, that led to it being acquired, and that led to me being here at Digital Science. So there's a shortened version, and I'm a mom and do a lot of other things at the same time. So,
you wear many hats, to use that phrase. I know it's so overused, but you really do. You're
true.
A busy lady. Yeah. And what year was it acquired? How long ago?
In 2020. So okay. The year of the pandemic.
I was going to say a lot going on that year.
That was a lot, yeah.
Talking about research integrity, what is your definition of research integrity? How do you define that?
So the way that I look at it is in a very broad scientific ecosystem. And so you need to have, integrity, if we just go back to the definition, right? A wholeness, a completeness. If you have a house that has an integral structure, right? It has a good structure, a good foundation, a good roof, those types of things.
Good bones.
Good bones, right? And you need to have that in research. But like anything, it's not just the lab, or not everybody works in the lab, not the scholarship that you do. It's also the ecosystem that you work in. And I consider, when I look at research integrity, it needs to be a truly reliable system that supports all the multifunctionality of it effectively, of moving scholarly thoughts and ideas, and research forward.
And what do you see as the major issues facing the scholarly community with research integrity?
I think that we have opened up science, which was needed in a time where technology was vastly increasing. And I was one of these, but I think we naively thought if you open things that everything will be fine. And we have opened science without thinking about how do we trust science. And I use science in a very old-fashioned term. So if we don't have the humanities, in my opinion, we don't have science either. So I'm just going to put that out there. Um, but we've opened science without putting the scaffolding of trust around that open science. And I like to think about it like, do you go and drink from your local water source? Well, some people may have a very clean water source that they absolutely do. I'm not going to go out to the Thames in London and pick out the water without having it be filtered, without having
Right.
it be monitored, without continuous monitoring, before I would decide whether I'm going to actually consume that water. And we need to do that for science.
So, Leslie, what work is digital science doing in this area at the moment of research integrity?
So research integrity can be thought of in a lot of spaces. And first of all, they created my position, which is great. Digital science is a technology company for the research environment. And I would say that different pieces of technology that have been developed here or acquired and are now part of digital science help with integrity, whether it's something like Overleaf that helps a certain sector of people describe their work in a much better fashion, in a collaborative fashion with mathematical equations and in a more easy fashion, then that's part of the integrity of keeping notes and keeping the facts, the provenance of the information, whether it's something like Figshare that is an open repository, is a repository that people can share to, those types of things. So everything could be looked at with an angle of integrity. Specifically, though, when it comes to looking at the integrity of the bibliometric data, which is what I get very excited about in my nerdy sense, which is pretty much all of my senses, is they have dimensions, and dimensions is a linked database of publications, of patents, of clinical trials, a lot of sources. And what's exciting to me about this is that they actually don't curate it. And you may think, oh, well, that's kind of bad because it's not, it is curated in one sense, but it's not filtered in another sense. So we have preprints in dimensions. We have actually a lot of atypical publication patterns, shall we say, in a very nice British way, which basically means they're dodgy or nefarious, depending
Sketchy.
on sketchy, what word you want to use. But because of that, it helps somebody like me understand where are things going right within the scholarly publishing ecosystem and where are things going wrong. Because we can have, for example, something like a predatory journal, which seems very clear as well from our end, may seem much clearer on whether you should trust it or not. But the fact of the matter is there are legitimate, known journals and publishers who are targeted by paper mills, and their once good journal for a short time is at a place where you shouldn't trust the publications that go into it during that time, and we can see those patterns. So from that, we get to things that have been developed most recently that we're going to talk about, which is author check. So I did leave that one out so we can talk about it.
Yeah, so that's a good segue. So we were talking about Dimensions author check, and you're already leading into some of the issues, but what are the issues that you're hoping to solve with this new tool?
Yeah, let me go back to kind of what in the world started this. And this was in 2019 at Ripeta, thinking about how do we reproduce science, and then what are the best trust markers in a publication. And then I found one and I went, I don't think this author is real. And then that led me down a whole rabbit hole of, well, what does real mean? And who gets to be an author? And how do we trust that the name on the paper is somebody, first of all, that exists, somebody who would be an expert or be allowed to be a reputable person on that publication? And that has moved into very much if we can't trust the authors on the paper, why are we going to trust anything else that's within the paper? Now, I'm going to be very careful. I mean, I am careful about this because, first of all, some people make really poor decisions, and there needs to be a path to redemption. So I'm not saying let's just cancel somebody because they've done something bad. But having fake authors on there, having authorship manipulation go on papers, people who are part of networks of citation manipulation, those are things that we need to know. And it also really obscures people who are doing good research. It obscures their work because they can't compete with people who are overpopulating and overpolluting the information river that we have. And so that led to, how do we check that the author exists? Are they part of a network of atypical network, shall we say? With a lot of publications, do they have problems with retractions? And one of the things on retractions is everyone will say, well, not all retractions are bad. And they aren't. About 7% of them, 6 to 7%, are because of error, and science is messy and all of the things like that.
And science can change too, on a day-to-day basis. Something new may be discovered and say, oh, well, we thought that, but it's not the case.
Absolutely. And that's part of the scientific discovery. That being said, it's good to know if somebody has a retraction. We also have a taxonomy of retraction reasons within the system so that you can see, okay, they have a retraction. It's due to an error. It's not due to data manipulation. It's not due to a paper mill. It is due to, and this is a real case, the fMRI machine was giving out results that interfered with the actual study results. This happened to somebody, a group of my colleagues at WashU. So you couldn't trust the research, and they had to retract the paper. Legitimate reason. So we're trying to give publishers a quick way of looking at who's putting things in and submitting things to their journal. This is also a way for academics to look at the people who are coming into their institution or the people who are at their institution.
Maybe spot repeat offenders. So early adopters of people who have actually used this tool, AuthorCheck, what's their feedback? What are their thoughts?
So we've heard very positive things from the publishers who are using it. And I think one of the most telling things to me was when they were piloting it, one of them said, I know this is a pilot, but if you take it away, we'll cry. So I thought that was very telling of how much they were using it and being able to save a lot of time. Does it replace the human going in and doing checks? No, but it helps them make decisions more quickly. The other thing that we've been able to see, which has just been, I don't know, it makes me really happy, when you can finally put something into place that people are using and it's making a difference, is it is one of the top used tools, and it was just officially launched, right? But from the number of people who are using it, who are going in on a daily basis, using it again. So they're finding it useful, which is what I really like.
Yeah,
I mean, it's exciting.
That's the end goal. That is exciting. And so what are your hopes or expectations for research integrity in the scholarly communication landscape, looking down the pipeline, looking, in the future? What are your hopes with this?
So my hopes with research integrity is that it's taken very seriously throughout the entire ecosystem of science. And you mentioned right there, scholarly communication. Anyone who's heard me speak before knows that I used to use this in my talks. I was scared that what happened to journalism will happen to science, in that we will lose the narrative of what science is because the pollutants that are in there are becoming stronger than what the messy truth is. And that has concerned me. I think that people like me, and there's a whole community of people who are trying to clean it up. and then monitor and make science better while maintaining the narrative that, you know what, science is messy. Scholarship is messy, right? It is also a foundation of our society and something that I believe in. I think scholarly communicators are vital to that because they help hold that narrative. Scientists, scholars aren't necessarily always the best communicators, but people who know are they're experts in this field like you who know how to get messages out. So I think that's very important, and we need to have more emphasis on the scholarly communication experts. And the third and last that I will always push is to support our librarians. Our librarians are absolutely amazing in the knowledge they have, in the support they give, and we need to make sure that we support that work that they do.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to ask, who are the early adopters of AuthorCheck? Do you want to share that, of who's been using it so far, the people you've gotten the feedback from?
I think the one that I should have checked this beforehand, but the one I can definitely say is Sage was the first adopter of this, and they have been working closely and giving more feedback still with what can go in and what we can do better about that. The other publishers, I don't think that I'm allowed to publicly state yet without verifying that I could. So apologies on that.
No, I was just curious. So
Sure.
Tell our listeners where they can go or how they can find out more about this cool new tool.
Oh, thank you. So if you do one word AuthorCheck and do digital science, it should come up within any search. If I think that's probably the best way of doing it. If you go to the digital science website, we have that. If you find me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to also point you to the right place. And we have, within publishing, we have Helen Cook, who is a huge champion and working towards this as well. So I think really meeting the people and getting in touch with us would be great.
Yes, and we'll include a slide at the end too after this video if you click on the link in the description for the show notes, where you can go to see a webinar and to see more resources and see Leslie's report from 2022 from Retraction Watch. And Leslie, thank you again so much for joining us today to tell us about this new tool and what digital science is up to. We're very, very glad to have you guys today and to hear about this. It's exciting.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes.
And for the excitement. It is exciting. So.
Yeah, it is. And we're always glad to hear about new tools that can make people's jobs and lives easier and have a positive impact, like you were saying, that right off the bat that you've gotten such good feedback. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Leslie.